Hare Krishna, welcome to the live studios here in Wisteria Cottage, sometimes called Wisteria College, because there's a lot of learning going on here lately. We're changing the whole atmosphere. Just outside of Folkestone, in between Folkestone and Canterbury, in Kent, UK. And we've got a whole room full of Vaishnavas from all parts of the world, from Latvia to America, South Africa, Hungary, you know, like, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Give me that. Welcome to all of you out there in cyberspace. And here they are. There you go. Smile, you're on candid camera. Okay, pretty nice pad we got here, filled up with Vaishnavas. We got a little yatra going on here. Okay, welcome to all of you out there in cyberspace. You're getting it just right? Is it just right? Well done. Okay, special day. We're starting the third canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. I got a message by someone today that said, I can't believe how fast I read the first two cantos of the Bhagavatam. I've never read it that fast. We're not going very fast. It shows that maybe some people aren't reading very much. And just at the pace we're going, it's fast for a lot of people. So, before we read the Srimad-Bhagavatam, we're going to do our vow to every day read the deep, ecstatic, beautiful glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam by Srila Sanatana Goswami, the direct disciple of Lord Chaitanya, not only the direct disciple, but the senior disciple, and the disciple of Lord Chaitanya, who heard the most from Lord Chaitanya in terms of time of any other disciple. And he said this about the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvanduditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvadasa Vasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostute Tume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. Don't miss a syllable. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin atini chochata kara hanamun chagada chinmam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, no excuses. We're thinking, oh, I'm the most fallen, I can't. Sanatana Goswami says, no, even you're the most fallen, you're going to get exalted. Ready or not, here we come. Please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So, we've come to the third canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And after a very deep and interesting description of the creation of the universal form of the Lord, the subject is going to switch back to Vidura and Maitreya and Uddhava and that conversation that was going on earlier in the second canto. And then after this, then the questions that Maharaj Parikshit asked to Shukadeva Goswami, which were so vast that it told of how much Maharaj Parikshit already knew, to ask those questions, the number of questions, the depth of questions of what the rest of the Bhagavatam is going to speak about. It's obvious that Parikshit Maharaj already knew all these things. And he's just doing this so that the Bhagavatam could be brought into manifestation for the rest of us. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, O king, after Vidura, the great devotee, renounced his prosperous home and entered the forest, he asked these very questions of His Grace, Maitreya Rishi. Text 2. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not care at all for Duryodhana's house. Purport. According to the Gaudiya Achintya Beda Beda Tattva philosophy, anything which satisfies the senses of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is also Sri Krishna. For example, Sri Vrindavan Dham is non-different from Sri Krishna, Tad Dhama Vrindavanam, because at Vrindavan, the Lord enjoys the transcendental bliss of His internal potency. Similarly, the house of the Pandavas was also a source of transcendental bliss for the Lord. It is mentioned here that the Lord identified the house with His own self. Thus, the house of the Pandavas was as good as Vrindavan. And Vidura should not have given up that place of transcendental bliss. Therefore, the reason for his quitting the house was not exactly a family misunderstanding. Rather, Vidura took the opportunity to meet Rishi Maitreya and discuss transcendental knowledge. For a saintly person like Vidura, any disturbance due to worldly affairs is insignificant. Shall I read that again? For a saintly person like Vidura, any disturbance due to worldly affairs is insignificant. Such disturbances, however, are sometimes favorable for higher realization. And therefore Vidura took advantage of a family misunderstanding in order to meet Maitreya Rishi. Text 3. The king asked Shukadeva Goswami, where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidura and His Grace Maitreya Muni? Kindly oblige, my Lord, and describe this to us. Purport. Exactly as Shonaka Rishi inquired of Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami replied, so Srila Shukadeva Goswami replied to King Parikshit's inquiries. The king was very anxious to understand the meaningful discussion that took place between the two great souls. So this is the qualification for understanding how eager you are, how anxious you are to know. Text 4. Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to His Grace Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful, on the highest level, and approved by learned circles. Purport. Questions and answers among different classes of men have different value. Inquiries by mercantile men in a business exchange cannot be expected to be highly purposeful in spiritual values. Questions and answers by different classes of men can be guessed by the caliber of the persons concerned. In the Bhagavad Gita, the discussion was between Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the supreme person and the supreme devotee, respectively. The Lord admitted Arjuna to be his devotee and friend, and therefore any sane man can guess that the discussion was on the topic of the Bhakti Yoga system. Actually, the whole Bhagavad Gita is based on the principle of Bhakti Yoga. There is a difference between karma and karma yoga. Karma is regulated action for the enjoyment of the fruit by the performer, but karma yoga is action performed by the devotee for the satisfaction of the Lord. Karma yoga is based on bhakti, or pleasing the Lord, whereas karma is based on pleasing the senses of the performer himself. According to Srimad-Bhagavatam, one is advised to approach a bona fide spiritual master when one is actually inclined to question from an elevated level of spiritual understanding. A common man who has no interest in spiritual values has no need to approach a spiritual master, just as a matter of following fashion. As a student, Maharaj Parikshit was serious about learning the science of God, and Shukadeva Goswami was a bona fide spiritual master in the transcendental science. Both of them knew that the topics discussed by Vidura and Rishi Maitreya were elevated, and thus Maharaj Parikshit was very interested in learning from them, from his bona fide spiritual master. Text 5. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the great sage Shukadeva Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus being questioned by the king, he said to him, please hear the topics attentively. Text 6. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons, and thus he set fire to the lac house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. Purport. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth, but his blindness in committing impious activities to support his dishonest sons was a greater blindness than his physical lack of eyesight. The physical lack of sight does not bar one from spiritual progress. But when one is blind spiritually, even though physically fit, that blindness is dangerously detrimental to the progressive path of human life. Text 7. The king did not forbid his son Dushasana's abominable action of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly king Yudhishthira, even though her tears washed the red dust on her breasts. Text 8. Yudhishthir, whose enemy was never born, was unfairly defeated in gambling. But because he had taken the vow of truthfulness, he went off to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Dhritarashtra, who was overwhelmed by illusion. Purport. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the rightful heir to his father's kingdom, but just to favor his own sons, headed by Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, Maharaj Yudhishthir's uncle, adopted various unfair means to cheat his nephews of their rightful share of the kingdom. At last the Pandavas demanded only 5 villages, one for each of the 5 brothers, but that was also refused by the usurpers. This incident led to the war of Kurukshetra. The battle of Kurukshetra, therefore, was induced by the Kurus and not the Pandavas. Because the Pandavas were Kshatriyas, their only proper livelihood was to rule and not to accept any other occupation. A Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya will not accept employment for his livelihood under any circumstances. Text 9. Lord Krishna was sent by Arjuna into the assembly as the spiritual master of the whole world, and although his words were heard by some, like Bhishma, as pure nectar, it was not so for the others, who were completely bereft of the last farthing of past pious works. The king, Dhritarashtra, or Duryodhana, did not take the words of Lord Krishna very seriously. Purport. Lord Krishna, who is the spiritual master of the entire universe, accepted the duty of a messenger and, deputed by Arjuna, went to the assembly of King Dhritarashtra on a peace mission. Krishna is everyone's Lord, yet because he was the transcendental friend of Arjuna, he gladly accepted the role of messenger, exactly like an ordinary friend. That is the beauty of the Lord's behavior with his pure devotees. He reached the assembly and spoke about peace, and the message was relished by Bhishma and the other leaders because it was spoken by the Lord himself. But neither Duryodhana nor his father Dhritarashtra took the message very seriously due to the exhaustion of the pious results of their past deeds. That is the way of persons who have no credit of pious activities or pious deeds. By past pious deeds, one may become the king of a country, but because the results of the pious acts of Duryodhana and company were dwindling, it became evident from their actions that they were sure to lose the kingdom to the Pandavas. The message of Godhead is always like nectar to the devotees, but it is just the opposite to the non-devotees. Sugar candy is always sweet to a healthy man, but it tastes very bitter to persons suffering from jaundice. Text 10. When Vidura was invited by his elder brother, Dhritarashtra, for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidura are approved by great ministers of state. Purport. Political suggestions by Vidura are known as expert, just as in modern times Pandit Chanakya is considered the authority in good counsel in both political and moral instructions. Text 11. Vidura said, "You must now return the legitimate share to Yudhishthir, who has no enemies and who has been forbearing through untold sufferings due to your offenses. He is waiting with his younger brothers, among whom is the vengeful Bhima, breathing heavily like a snake. Surely you are afraid of him. Text 12. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, has accepted the sons of Pritha as his kinsmen, and all the kings of the world are with Lord Sri Krishna. He is present in his home with all his family members, the kings and princes of the Yadu dynasty, who have conquered an unlimited number of rulers, and he is their Lord. Purport. Vidura gave Dhritarashtra very good counsel regarding political alliance with the sons of Pritha, the Pandavas. The first thing he said was that Lord Krishna was intimately related with them as their cousin. Because Lord Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, he is worshipable by all brahmanas and demigods who are the controllers of the universal affairs. Besides that, Lord Krishna and his family members, the royal order of the Yadu dynasty, were the conquerors of all the kings of the world. The Kshatriyas used to fight the kings of various dominions and kidnap their beautiful princess daughters after conquering their relatives. This system was laudable because the Kshatriyas and the princesses would be married only on the basis of the chivalry of the conquering Kshatriya. All the young princes of the Yadu dynasty married the daughters of other kings in this way by chivalrous force, and thus they were conquerors of all the kings of the world. Vidura wanted to impress upon his elder brother that fighting with the Pandavas was fraught with many dangers because they were supported by Lord Krishna, who had conquered, even in his childhood, demons like Kamsa and Jarasandha, and demigods like Brahma and Indra. Therefore, all universal power was behind the Pandavas. Text 13. You are maintaining offense personified, Duryodhana, as your infallible son, but he is envious of Lord Krishna. And because you are thus maintaining a non-devotee of Krishna, you are devoid of all auspicious qualities. Relieve yourself of this ill fortune as soon as possible, and do good to the whole family. Purport. A good son is called apatya, one who does not allow his father to fall down. The son can protect the father's soul when the father is dead by offering sacrifices to please the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This system is still prevalent in India. After the death of his father, a son goes to offer sacrifices at the lotus feet of Vishnu at Gaya, and thus delivers the father's soul if the father has fallen. But if the son is already an enemy of Vishnu, how in such an inimical mood can he offer sacrifice unto Lord Vishnu's lotus feet? Lord Krishna is directly the personality of Godhead Vishnu, and Duryodhana was inimical to him. He would therefore be unable to protect his father, Dhritarashtra, after his death. He himself was to fall down because of his faithlessness towards Vishnu. How then could he protect his father? Vidura advised Dhritarashtra to get rid of such an unworthy son as Duryodhana as soon as possible, as if he was at all anxious to see to the good of his family. According to the moral instructions of Chanakya Pandit, what is the use of a son who is neither a learned man nor a devotee of the Lord? If a son is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, he is just like blind eyes, a source of trouble. A physician may sometimes advise the extrication of such useful eyes from their sockets, so that one can be relieved of the constant trouble. Duryodhana was exactly like blind, troubling eyes. he would be a source of great trouble to the family of Dhritarashtra, as foreseen by Vidura. Vidura therefore rightly advised his elder brother to get rid of this source of trouble. Dhritarashtra was wrongly maintaining such personified offense, under the mistaken impression that Duryodhana was a good son, able to liberate his father. Text 14. While speaking thus, Vidura, whose personal character was esteemed by respectable persons, was insulted by Duryodhana, who was swollen with anger and whose lips were trembling. Duryodhana was in the company of Karna, his younger brothers, and his maternal uncle, Shakuni. Purport. It is said that giving good counsel to a foolish person causes the fool to become angry, just as feeding milk to a snake only increases its venomous poison. Saint Vidura was so honorable that his character was looked up to by all respectable persons. But Duryodhana was so foolish that he dared to insult Vidura. This was due to his bad association with Shakuni, his maternal uncle, as well as with his friend Karna, who always encouraged Duryodhana in his nefarious acts. Text 15. Who asked him to come here, this son of a kept mistress? He is so crooked that he spies in the interest of the enemy against those on whose support he has grown up. Toss him out of the palace immediately and leave him with only his breath. Purport. When getting married, the Kshatriya kings would take several other youthful girls along with the married princess. These girl attendants of the king were known as dasis, or attendant mistresses. By intimate association with the king, the dasis would get sons. Such sons were called dasiputras. They had no claim to a royal position, but they would get maintenance and other facilities, just like princes. Vidura was the son of such a dasi, and he was thus not counted among the Kshatriyas. King Dhritarashtra was very affectionate toward his younger dasiputra brother Vidura, and Vidura was a great friend and philosophical advisor to Dhritarashtra. Duryodhana knew well, very well, that Vidura was a great soul and well-wisher, but unfortunately he used strong words to hurt his innocent uncle. Duryodhana would not only attacked Vidura's birth, but also called him an infidel because he seemed to support the cause of Yudhishthira, whom Duryodhana considered his enemy. He desired that Vidura be immediately put out of the palace and deprived of all his possessions. If possible, he would have liked him caned until he was left with nothing but his breath. He charged that Vidura was a spy of the Pandavas because he advised King Dhritarashtra in their favor. Such is the situation of palace life. And the intricacies of diplomacy, that even a faultless person like Vidura could be charged with something abominable and punished. Vidura was struck with wonder at such unexpected behavior from his nephew Duryodhana, and before anything actually happened, he decided to leave the palace for good. Text 16. Thus being pierced by arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Purport. A pure devotee of the Lord is never perturbed by an awkward position created by the external energy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 3:27 it is stated, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudatma karta ham iti manyate. A conditioned soul is absorbed in material existence under the influence of different modes of external energy. Absorbed in the false ego, he thinks that he is doing everything by himself. The external energy of the Lord, the material nature, is fully under the control of the Supreme Lord, and the conditioned soul is fully under the grip of the external energy. Therefore, the conditioned soul is fully under the control of the law of the Lord. But due to illusion only, he thinks himself independent in his activities. Duryodhana was acting under such influence of the external nature, by which he would be vanquished at the ultimate end. He could not accept the sound advice of Vidura, but on the contrary, he insulted that great soul, who was the well-wisher of his whole family. Vidura could understand this because he was a pure devotee of the Lord. In spite of being very strongly insulted by Duryodhana's words, Vidura could see that Duryodhana, under the influence of Maya, the external energy, was making progress on the path toward his own ruination. He therefore considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Yet he also saw how the internal energy of the Lord helped him in that particular situation. A devotee is always in a renounced temperament because the world attractions can never satisfy him. Vidura was never attracted by the royal palace of his brother. He was always ready to leave the place and devote himself completely to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Now he got the opportunity by the grace of Duryodhana, and instead of being sorry at the strong words of insult, he thanked him from within, because it gave him the chance to live alone in a holy place and fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. The word gata vyataha, without being sorry, is significant here because Vidura was relieved from the tribulations which trouble every man entangled in material activities. He therefore thought that there was no need to defend his brother with his bow, because his brother was meant for ruination. Thus he left the palace before Duryodhana could act. Maya, the supreme energy of the Lord, acted here both internally and externally. Text 17. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantages of the pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapur, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimage, which are the Lord's lotus feet. With a desire to gain a high order of pious life, he traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. Purport. Vidura was undoubtedly a highly elevated and pious soul. Otherwise, he would not have taken his birth in the Kaurava family. To have high parentage, to possess wealth, to be highly learned, and to have great personal beauty are all due to past pious acts. But such pious possessions are not sufficient for obtaining the grace of the Lord and being engaged in his transcendental loving service. Vidura considered himself less pious, and therefore he decided to travel to all the great places of pilgrimage in the world in order to achieve greater piety and advance nearer to the Lord. At that time, Lord Krishna was personally present in the world, and Vidura could have at once approached him directly, but he did not do so because he was not sufficiently freed from sin. One cannot be 100% devoted to the Lord unless and until he is completely free from all effects of sin. Vidura was conscious that by the association of the diplomatic Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, he had lost his piety and was therefore not fit to associate at once with the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, this is confirmed in the following verse. Yesham twantakatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohanir mukta bhajanti mam dridavritaha. Persons who are sinful, asuras like Kamsa and Jarasandha, cannot think of Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth. Only those who are pure devotees, those who follow the regulative principles of religious life as prescribed in the scriptures, are able to engage themselves in karma yoga and then jnana yoga, and thereafter, by pure meditation, they can understand pure consciousness. When God consciousness is developed, one can take advantage of the association of pure devotees. Syan Mahat Seviya Bipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. One is able to associate with the Lord even during the existence of this life. Point of information. Do you know who Krishna was thinking of at the last moment before he left this world? The last words out of his mouth? Vidura. He thought of Vidura. And Uddhava was there, and he heard it. And later he met Vidura, and he told Vidura that Krishna thought of him just before he left. And Vidura was overwhelmed. So he's thinking he's not pure, but actually he was. Because when the Lord thinks of you, you become pure. Places of pilgrimage are meant for eradicating the sins of the pilgrims, and they are distributed all over the universe just to give facility to all concerned for attaining pure existence in God realization. One should not be satisfied, however, merely by visiting the places of pilgrimage and performing one's prescribed duties. He should be eager to meet the great souls who are already there, engaged in the service of the Lord. In each and every place of pilgrimage, the Lord is present in his various transcendental forms. These forms are called archa murtis, or forms of the Lord which can be easily appreciated by the common man. The Lord is transcendental to our mundane senses. He cannot be seen with our present eyes, nor can he be heard with our present ears. To the degree that we have entered into the service of the Lord, or in proportion to how much our lives are freed from sins, we can perceive the Lord. But even though we are not free from sins, the Lord is kind enough to allow us the facility of seeing him in his archa murti in the temple. The Lord is all-powerful, and therefore he is able to accept our service by presentation of his archa form. No one, therefore, should foolishly think the archa in the temple to be an idol. Such an archa murti is not an idol, but the Lord himself, and in proportion to how much one is free from sins, he is able to know the significance of the archa murti. The guidance of a pure devotee is therefore always required. In the land of Bharatavarsha, there are many hundreds and thousands of places of pilgrimage distributed all over the country, and by traditional practice, the common man visits such holy places during all seasons of the year. Some of the archa representations of the Lord situated in different places of pilgrimage are mentioned herewith. The Lord is present at Mathura, the birthplace of Lord Krishna, as Adi Kesava. The Lord is present at Puri, Orissa, as Lord Jagannath, also known as Purushottama. He is present at Allahabad, Prayag, as Bindu Madhava. At Mandara Hill, he is present at Madhusudana. In the Anandaranya, he is known as Vasudeva, Padmanabha, and Janardana. At Vishnu Kanchi, he is known as Vishnu, and at Mayapur, he is known as Hari. There are millions and billions of such archa forms of the Lord distributed all over the creation, all over the universe. All these archa murtis are summarized in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the following words: Sarvatra prakasya tanra bhakti sukadite jagatera adharma nashi dharma stapite. The Lord has so distributed himself all over the universe just to give pleasure to the devotees, to give the common man facility to eradicate his sins and to establish religious principles in the world. Text 18. Gorney Thai's coming here pretty soon. Did you know that? Yeah. We got a photo. Radhika Nagar sent a photo of the Murtis that he's going to be bringing. Unbelievable. Beautiful Lord Chaitanya. And she's over there like, isn't it? Yeah. Translation. He began to travel alone, thinking only of Krishna, through various holy places like Ayodhya, Dwaraka, and Mathura. He traveled where the air, hill, orchard, river, and lake are all pure and sinless, and where the forms of the unlimited decorate the temples. Thus he performed the pilgrim's progress. Purport. These archa forms of the Lord may be considered idols by the atheists, but that does not matter for persons like Vidura or his many other servants. The forms of the Lord are mentioned here as Anantalinga. Such forms of the Lord have unlimited potency, the same as that of the Lord himself. There is no difference between the potencies of the archa and those of the personal forms of the Lord. The example of the post box and post office may be applied here. The little post boxes distributed all over the city have the same potency as the postal system in general. The duty of the post office is to carry letters from one place to another. If one puts letters in post boxes authorized by the General Post Office, the function of carrying letters is performed without a doubt. Similarly, the Archamurti can also deliver the same unlimited mercy. Similarly, the Archamurti can also deliver the same unlimited potency of the Lord as when he is personally present. Vidura therefore could see nothing but Krishna in the different archa forms, and ultimately he was able to realize Krishna alone and nothing else. Text 19. While so traversing the earth, he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places, although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hairdressing nor a bed on which to lie. Thus he was always unseen by his various relatives. Purport. The first and foremost duty of a pilgrim is to satisfy the Supreme Lord Hari. While traveling as a pilgrim, one should not be worried about pleasing society. There is no need to depend on social formalities or occupation or dress. One should remain always absorbed in the function of pleasing the Lord. Thus sanctified by thought and action, one is able to realize the Supreme Lord by the process of the pilgrim's journey. Text 20. Thus, when he was in the land of Bharatabarsha, traveling to all the places of pilgrimage, he visited Prabhas Kshetra. At that time, Maharaj Yudhishthira was the emperor and held the world under one military strength and one flag. Purport. More than 5,000 years ago, while Saint Vidura was traveling the earth as a pilgrim, India was known as Bharatabarsha, as it is known even today. The history of the world cannot give any systematic account for more than 3,000 years into the past. But before that, The whole world was under the flag and military strength of Maharaj Yudhishthira, who was the emperor of the world. At present there are hundreds and thousands of flags flapping in the United Nations, but during the time of Vidura there was, by the grace of Vajita, Lord Krishna, only one flag. The nations of the world were very eager to again have one state. The nations of the world are very eager to again have one state under one flag, but for this they must seek the favor of Lord Krishna, who alone can help us become one worldwide nation. Okay. 21. At the place of pilgrimage at Prabhas, it came to his knowledge that all his relatives have died due to violent passion, just as an entire forest burns due to fire produced by the friction of bamboos. After this, he proceeded to where the river Saraswati flows west. Purport. Both the Kauravas and the Yadavas were relatives of Vidura, and Vidura heard of their extinction due to fratricidal war. The comparison of the friction of forest bamboos to that of passionate human societies is appropriate. The whole world is compared to a forest. At any moment there may be a flare-up of fire in the forest due to friction. No one goes to the forest to set it on fire, but due only to friction between bamboos, fire takes place and burns the entire forest. Similarly, in the greater forest of worldly transaction, the fire of war takes place because of the violent passion of the conditioned souls illusioned by the external energy. Such a worldly fire can be extinguished only by the water of the mercy cloud of saints. Just as a forest fire can be extinguished only by rains falling from a cloud. Text 22. On the bank of the river Saraswati there were 11 places of pilgrimage, namely 1. Trita, 2. Ushana, 3. Manu, 4. Pritu, 5. Agni, 6. Asita, 7. Vayu, 8. Sudasa, 9. Go, 10. Guha, and 11. Shadadeva. Vidura visited all of them and duly performed rituals. Text 23. There were also many other temples of various forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, established by great sages and demigods. These temples were marked with the chief emblems of the Lord, and they reminded one always of the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Purport. Human society is divided into 4 social orders of life and 4 spiritual divisions, applying to each and every individual person. This system is called Varnashrama Dharma, and it has already been discussed in many places in this great literature. The sages, or persons who completely devoted themselves to the spiritual upliftment of the entire human society, were known as Dvija Deva, the best among the twice born. The denizens of superior planets, from the moon planet and upwards, were known as Devas. Both the Dvija Devas and the Devas always established temples of Lord Vishnu in their various forms, such as Govinda, Madhusudana, Nishinga, Madhava, Keshava, Narayana, Padmanabha, Parthasarathi, and many others. The Lord expands himself in innumerable forms, but all of them are non-different from one another. Lord Vishnu has 4 hands, and in each hand holds a particular item, either a conch shell, wheel, club, or lotus flower. Of these 4 emblems, the chakra, or wheel, is the chief. Lord Krishna, being the original Vishnu form, has only one emblem, namely the wheel, and therefore he is sometimes called Chakri. The Lord's chakra is the symbol of the power by which the Lord controls the whole manifestation. The tops of Vishnu temples are marked with the symbol of the wheel, so that people may have the chance to see the symbol from a very long distance and at once remember Lord Krishna. The purpose of building very high temples is to give people a chance to see them from a distant place. This system is carried on in India whenever a new temple is constructed, and it appears that it is coming down from a time from recorded history. The foolish propaganda by atheists that temples were constructed only in later days is refuted here, because Vidura visited these temples at least 5,000 years ago, and the temples of Vishnu were in existence long, long before Vidura visited them. The great sages and demigods never established statues of men or demigods, but they established temples of Vishnu for the benefit of common men, to raise them to the platform of God consciousness. Text 24. Thereafter he passed through very wealthy provinces like Surat, Suravira, and Matsya, and through western India, known as Kurujangala. At last he reached the bank of the Yamuna, where he happened to meet Uddhava, the great devotee of Lord Krishna. Purport. The tract of land comprising about 100 square miles from modern Delhi to the Mathura district of Uttar Pradesh, including a portion of the Gurgaon district in eastern Punjab, is considered to be the topmost place of pilgrimage in all of India. This land is sacred because Lord Krishna traveled through it many times. From the very beginning of his appearance, he was in Mathura, in the house of his maternal uncle Kamsa, and he was reared by his foster father, Maharaj Nanda, at Vrindavan. There are still many devotees of the Lord lingering there in ecstasy in search of Krishna and his childhood associates, the gopis. It is not that such devotees meet Krishna face to face in that tract of land, but a devotee eagerly searching after Krishna is as good as his seeing him personally. I'll read that again, just in case you missed it. It is not that such devotees meet Krishna face to face in that tract of land, but a devotee eagerly searching after Krishna is as good as his seeing him personally. How this is so cannot be explained, but it is factually realized by those who are pure devotees of the Lord. Philosophically, one can understand that Lord Krishna and his remembrance are on the absolute plane, and that the very idea of searching for him at Vrindavan in pure God consciousness gives more pleasure to the devotee than seeing him face to face. Such devotees of the Lord see him face to face at every moment, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Premanjanat chuditi bhakti bilochanena santak sadaiva hridaye shibilokayanti yam sham asundaram achinta gunasa rupam govinda maripurusham tamaham bhajami. Those who are in ecstasy of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shyamasundar, Krishna, see him always in their hearts due to love and devotional service rendered to the Lord. Both Vidura and Uddhava were such elevated devotees, and therefore they both came to the bank of the Yamuna and met each other. Text 25. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him, Uddhava, who was a constant companion of Lord Krishna and formerly a great student of Brihaspati's. Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Purport. Vidura was older than Uddhava, like a father. And therefore, when the two met, Uddhava bowed down before Vidura. And Vidura embraced him, because Uddhava was younger, like a son. Vidura's brother Pandu was Lord Krishna's uncle, and Uddhava was a cousin to Lord Krishna. According to social custom, therefore, Vidura was to be respected by Uddhava on the level of his father. Uddhava was a great scholar in logic, and he was known to be a son or disciple of Brihaspati, the greatly learned priest and spiritual master of the demigods. Vidura asked Uddhava about the welfare of his relatives, although he already knew that they were no longer in the world. This inquiry appears to be very queer, but Srila Jiva Goswami states that the news was shocking to Vidura, who therefore inquired again due to great curiosity. Thus his inquiry was psychological and not practical. We'll end the reading tonight. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Vidura ki Jai, Uddhava ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi Hare Bol. So now we come to our favorite time of reflection from the Vaishnavas. Any point that you heard that stuck into your mind or that you want to further elaborate upon or ask about, please feel free. Anybody out there in cyberspace, do the same, please. How's the connection tonight? Clear? Clear. Thank you.
One thing I noted down for text 14.
Yes, Bhakta Paul is speaking about text 14 that he noted down.
It was said that feeding milk to a snake will increase its venomous poison.
It said that milk fed to a snake will simply increase its venomous poison.
And to me, I guess it depends on what we feed gets stronger, that type of thing. So if we're,
To him, say that again?
so whatever we feed gets stronger.
Whatever we feed gets stronger.
If we're practicing Krishna consciousness, increasing that, then it's just going to become stronger and stronger. But then if we're not doing that, then that's going to become stronger and stronger.
That's one aspect, but the aspect that's being said here
Yeah.
is if the heart of the person is actually contrary to Krishna, if the person is actually atheistic and against Krishna, then when one hears even about Krishna, then it turns to poison, and he will bite. He will commit an offense. He will speak offensive words, even though what he's hearing is very nectarian. Because the nature of the snake is to bite, even unprovoked. That's the nature. They're so envious. Snakes are most envious creature. They'll bite even if not provoked, especially the venomous ones, poison ones. So if you keep the pet snake and feeding poison, he's going to turn around and bite you, and it won't be milk that'll come out of the fangs. It'll be poison. There was something in the news not that long ago, just about 6-8 months ago. I was in America, and this foolish person took a cobra as a pet. And he used to travel with it. So one day he was driving his car, and he had the snake. No, it's real story, real. And he had the snake came like this, raised his head, and went like that, and bit his right here. And he had enough, I don't know what, somehow or other his cell phone was there, and he called the emergency number. And the people came there, and the snake was still there, and he was like pretty out of it. And they had to get the snake off his body, and then I'm not sure if the guy lived or not. I think he did. But this is how foolish a person can be. How much more foolish can a person be? When it talks about foolish people in the scriptures, now we can see in front of our eyes people who were just so foolish, do something so stupid as that. What does they say? Stupid is that stupid does. Yes.
Just a reflection about.
We have an actress in the house, and her voice is loud and clear, so I won't bother to repeat it. Go ahead, project right here.
Yeah, I had a reflection about how when Vidura was treated so cruelly, that the internal and the external energy was acting, and therefore even though he was being treated this way, he could see the benefit and the positivity of it. And I was reflecting on how brilliant that would be when one is treated in such harsh manner sometimes, or perceive it in such a way that you can always find the internal energy that's acting and reflect on that.
Shall we hear something from Krishna about that?
Please.
Why not? Why not? In the 12th chapter of the Gita, Krishna explains to Arjuna what pleases him the most. And these are, I'm just going to read the verses because they're pretty self-explanatory. But it goes to your point. This is the beginning of, the end of chapter 12, beginning from text 13. One who was not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, and is free from false ego, who is equal both in happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. He by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. My devotee, who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service, and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. Now, you notice that the imperishable path that's being described here, he doesn't mention anything about, how many circles he's making in front of the deities, or whether he's doing this kind of service or cooking that. It's talking about the consciousness. So Vidura was like that. Even though he felt a feeling of disgust for what the person said, he didn't, fight back or do anything. Just put his bow down and he just walked off to visit Krishna, to be with Krishna. And therefore, Krishna thought of him at the end. Yes, Dr. Matt. A comment. Well, you know who that is? That's Radharaman.
Oh, Radharaman.
Radha lock. He's locked on Radha.
He said, interesting comment by Srila Prabhupada. Maya, the supreme energy of the Lord, acted here both externally and internally. And Arman said, another interesting comment in Srimad-Bhagavatam 3.1.4 purport. According to Srimad-Bhagavatam, one is advised to approach a bona fide spiritual master when one is actually inclination questioned from an elevated level of spiritual understanding. A common man who has no interest in spiritual values has no need to approach a spiritual master just as a matter of following fashion.
Yes. Yes. When I was working in Hollywood in 1968, 69, and because I had a position, I was the assistant studio manager at Columbia Pictures. Yeah, I got my card. I can show it to you just in case you don't believe me. I'm not telling a fib. And we would get these, invitations to places. Sometimes to some premiere of some movie or something, Funny Girl or something like that. And sometimes we would get invitations to parties, kind of things. And there was one kind of like a starlet type person. And she was, and by this time I was starting to say, this place is like really weird. And I was getting ready to move on anyway, but I was still kind of like caught up in it because that's what I was doing. And I went to this party, and there was this starlet, and everybody was kind of like around, and there was a staircase, one of these typical staircases up, and down she comes, and who was following her? This guy with a beard, kind of like dressed in like a white kind of like robe type thing, and he came after her like this, and then she went like this, and went like that, and he went over there. And it was like he was a dog. And he was just calling him, sit over here, do this, that. So somebody says, who is this? He says, this is my guru. So it says right, but what we heard and what Radharaman was repeating was, what happens when you just accept the guru as a fashion. People are into it. Whoops. There's another place where Prabhupada said that unless a person is actually serious about knowing what truth is, he doesn't need a spiritual master. There's no need for him to approach a spiritual master. One has to be actually interested. What else? Yes, Vajraloka. Shoot.
I touched by one sentence.
She was touched by one sentence, Vajraloka. Particularly. She was actually touched by all of them, but this one particular one.
Oh yeah. I think you read it twice actually. That when Prabhupada says that it doesn't. It's not about
One that I read twice.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that devotees see Krishna face to face, but their searching after Krishna is
Tantamount. The word is tantamount.
yeah.
When they're searching seriously, there are still many devotees of the Lord lingering there in ecstasy in search of Krishna and his childhood associates, the gopis. It is not that such devotees meet Krishna face to face in that tract of land, but a devotee's eagerly searching after Krishna is as good as seeing him personally. How this is so cannot be explained, but it is factually realized by those who are pure devotees of the Lord. So this in the prayers of the 6 Goswamis and their songs, you can understand. They're always praying, where are you? Are you here? Are you there? They never say, oh Krishna, here you are. They don't say like that in any of their prayers. So this is Lord Chaitanya's program, that we serve Krishna in separation and hanker and increase the hankering in that way by the service, and this is how we can tell whether our service is actually being done properly. Because if it is, then our separation from Krishna will increase. Our feelings of separation from Krishna will increase. And the more those feelings of separation increase, as we heard in another place in the purport that we just read, then a devotee begins to feel anxious. And one time, one of my godbrothers approached Prabhupada and asked him, how can I tell if I'm making advancement? And Prabhupada's immediate answer was, how much anxiety are you in? In other words, we're thinking, no more anxiety, that means advancement. But Prabhupada's saying, the more anxiety you're in, the more advancement you've made. And then he uses the example of Yashoda. Yashoda is constantly in anxiety, you know? She's never peaceful. Mothers know about that, yeah. Especially the one with 19-month-old ones. We had a delightful little time with Sunayana this afternoon, by the way. She's really charming little girl. And she kept paying obeisances too, like spontaneously she kept paying obeisances, and then we'd start to leave and then she would pay obeisances again. She would start to leave and then she'd pay obeisances again, isn't it? I'm not lying, she actually did that 4 or 5 times. It's natural when babies are, before they do all nonsense, they want to bow down and serve and clean and do everything. Serve. What is it? Was it in the Bible? One must become as if a little child in order to enter the kingdom of God. Yes. Shamagori is giving us a realization. There's a very nice part where Prabhupada says
these very confidential parts.
That these very confidential parts,
the mood of the devotees,
it
actually cannot be explained.
Can actually not be explained.
They just need to be experienced.
Yes, one has to realize them. They can't. It's revealed knowledge. In other words, what you're saying is it has to be revealed. This knowledge, it can't be. You can't think your way into these positions. You can't think your way to your original relationship with Krishna. You can't decide what you're going to be. You know, as Prabhupada said, don't try to see Krishna, but act in such a way that Krishna will want to come and see you. Because that's the only way that you can see Krishna, is if he chooses you and comes to see you. You can't see him in any other way. He's not our order supplier. And then he uses the example of the sun. You can't decide that you can't demand the sun to come up whenever you want. The sun comes up the time it's supposed to. So Krishna appears when it's right.
We still have the tendency to try to understand and read
Yes.
everything.
She's saying that still we have a tendency to try to understand everything with the brain, with the intelligence, the mind.
Just wonder if it takes us what to do with that propensity.
Study the Bhagavatam. Hear the Sankhya philosophy. Memorize it. Repeat it to others. Then your intelligence becomes purified, and then you naturally want to be with Krishna. Or at least you'll get some idea of how great he is, deeper understanding of how great he is, and then that'll increase your desire to want to be with him. Yes, Priyakund.
Just a comment on that phrase that Prabhupada uses, Maharaj, lingering in ecstasy.
Lingering in ecstasy. Perfect.
Bittersweet, it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Lingering in ecstasy. Sweetness. Yeah. There's that statement in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, and I think it's in the 4th chapter, or maybe it's before. Anyway, in that place, Krishna speaking, and he said, devotion weakened by a sense of awe and reverence and majesty cannot control me, Krishna said. Mother Yashoda comes to me after with a stick, and his heart melts. Or Radharani's gonna get on his case about something, chastise him. It steals his mind from the hymns of the Vedas. Anyway, that's a very high realization, and we can't artificially, jump under the back of the deity and say, Krishna, what kind of big man are you? We'll very soon fall down from doing something like that. That can only come naturally.
I'm feeling that if Krishna is...
Paul is feeling that if Krishna is going to meet us, he'll come to us.
When we're ready.
Yes.
Because of that, it's such a personal attachment and relationship with him.
Yes,
It's
correct.
Personal. That's the thing that's really stood out tonight is how the relationship that we foster towards Krishna is such a personal relationship because he's revealing himself to us.
Yes, also, and Krishna won't reveal himself to a person unless he can trust that person.
Right.
Because when he'll give opulence, he'll fulfill all your desires with just a little bit of devotional service, But to give pure love of himself, he won't do that for very many people because he doesn't want to get cheated, just like we don't want to get cheated. Because that love controls him. Yes, Gabrielle, Octine Gabrielle. Soon to be, and I'm not going to say it.
So in Book 40, verse 4, it is mentioned what is karma and karma yoga.
Mm.
Karma is regulated action for the enjoyment of the food by the performer, but karma yoga is action performed by the devotee for the satisfaction of the Lord. Karma yoga is based on bhakti, or pleasing the Lord, whereas karma is based on pleasing the senses of the performer himself.
Yes.
And
Question or just comment? Comment?
I
Comment?
wanted to ask if karma yoga was exactly the same as bhakti yoga, or because I always
Sometimes
imagined
Prabhupada equates it. Sometimes he does. If the work, because karma means work, And yoga means to connect. So if you're actually connecting your work completely, then it can be the same as bhakti yoga. But if you're still, like one for you and two for me, or two for you and one for me, then Krishna will reveal himself to that proportion. One for you and two for me. He responds according to the proportion of intensity of your devotion. So if a person is giving all the results of his work to Krishna, that's the same as bhakti yoga. But if he's giving a percentage, then it remains karma yoga, and one gets, something from Krishna, but not the whole thing. And sometimes it goes same goes with the term buddhi yoga. Sometimes Prabhupada equates the term buddhi yoga with bhakti yoga, because if it's done with the intelligence purely, if his mind is fixed on me, what is that verse? Evam buddha padam. No, sorry, I can't remember. I know it, but I can't remember it. Huh? Oh yeah, I forgot. Okay, you can be my mother for the night. Here. No. Okay. I think it's the 5th chapter. Thank you. Let me see. It's right before. Yes, I found it. It's 5:17. Tad buddhiyas tadatmanas tannishtas tatparayanaha gachchant apunar avritim jnana nirduta kalmashaha. So here the words is tad buddhiyas tadatmanas. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. So that's Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yoga.
I don't really understand what Buddhi Yoga is in Bhagavad Gita, and I've been wondering for years.
Well, here it is. Tad buddhiyas tadatmanas tannishtas tatparayanaha gachchant apunar avritim jnana nirduta kalmashaha. Tad buddhiya, those whose intelligence is always in the Supreme. That's Buddhi Yoga. When one's intelligence is always in the Supreme, it's always fixed. Tadatmana, whose minds are always in the Supreme, because your mind can't be always in the Supreme unless one's intelligence is fixed in the Supreme. And at the end of the 3rd chapter, there's another verse which is related to this. Evam buddhe padam buddhva. Here again, evam buddhe, intelligence, padam buddhva, superior. Evam buddhe padam buddhva, samstavyatmanamatmana, jahi shatru mahabaho, kama rupam durasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So here the deliberate spiritual intelligence is by Prabhupada in the bracket describes as Krishna consciousness. Because intelligence is right next to the soul, and creative intelligence tends to go to the soul, tends to want to find out about the soul rather than find out other things.
The mind can drag it down.
It can. That's why the intelligence has to be purified. But what he's saying in both these verses is that when the intelligence is fixed on Krishna, then it can control the mind. And the mind is the controller of the senses. Therefore, deliberate spiritual, therefore one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness. That's Buddha Yoga. Hare Krishna.
Just on from that, does it also mean that what someone's prayojana is, what the goal is for some? So for the karma yoga practitioners, if their goal is to go to the heavenly planets, then it's not equated with bhakti.
That's right.
And similarly with Buddha yoga, if the consciousness, if the motive is to not please Krishna, if it's to gain spiritual intelligence.
Yeah, or to enjoy the mind, to enjoy the subtle body. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
That's right. That's why it says when the mind isn't fixed. What is that verse? I just said it, and I know the verse. Somebody can remember? But the second one comes into mind, Evam Buddhi Param Budva, 572. Well, just Tad Buddhyastadatmanas. Tad Buddhyastadatmanas. Tan Nishtas Tad Parayana. So when the intelligence is fixed on me, that's puts the intelligence beyond this platform that you're talking about.
Right.
It's not to enjoy, it's fixed on Krishna. Okay, now that we've fixed our intelligence on Krishna, and we're all ready to go back home, back to Godhead, we'll close the session for tonight. Thank you very much. Everyone out there in cyberspace, don't forget, to care means to share, and to share means to care. Hare Krishna. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. Hari Bo.